This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit lifelock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply.
Your weekend is not complete without the First Lady of New York Radio. It's the Joan Hamburg Show. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
I just finished reading a fascinating new book by Muriel Fox, and many of you may know Muriel. She's a powerful writer. She co-founded the National Organization for Women, and as part of that, the Now Legal Defense and Education Fund. Absolutely one of the major personalities and forces in what they call the second wave feminist movement. And Muriel worked with all of them, from Betty Friedan and on. It was an eyewitness to history who changed the world, this group of women. And I'm just curious, Muriel, you did a great job. What made you decide at this point to do this book? It had to be a very difficult task. I can imagine your notes and the things you never threw out.
Well, you're right, Joan. All these years, I've made my notes available for other people who wrote books, and they went through my files, and I didn't think of myself as writing a book. And then at the age of 94, I just got fed up. First of all, I was fed up that we lost abortion rights and that the ERA still hadn't been ratified. But also, I heard so many educated young people say they never heard of Betty Friedan. Never heard of our other leaders. Some of them didn't know about Now. And I thought, we've got to wake them up. They have to understand what we went through and our victories and how difficult it was, so that they could carry on in the future. So in 1 year, at the age of 94, I wrote the book. It really wrote itself because I had all these notes, all these pieces of paper, and I just put each of them in the right chapter. And then, as I say, the book wrote itself.
Yeah, but amazing because, you think this is part of the kind of work I do. You would think me that I would know this stuff, and I kept saying, what? And there were so many revelations in this book, some valid, some contradicting what had been there before, but the leadership and what went on to change the world and what the women's movement really involved is eye-opening.
Right, and I hope it's going to inspire people today, because we're really, so many of us are discouraged about the last election and what is the future. And we have to understand it's always been difficult. And after 2,000 years of tradition and laws that were worked against us, we finally made these changes. So it can be done. It's not going to be easy. But I just hope people will be inspired to understand we can make the necessary changes to make life better for women and girls and boys and men.
Did you find in all your work that today that the younger women and young women really care about this or want to know more, or were you surprised that they knew so little?
I'm amazed at how little people know, and they're not getting the news today. They're not getting the facts. We've lost people who used to get the daily newspaper, who used to get the news at night on radio and television, and they're not getting the news at all. They sort of get it haphazardly from social media, from their friends. But when I ask people, how do you get the news, they do not get it from respectable news sources. And that's a big part of our problem.
And they don't exist, these news sources anymore.
Right. Right. It's terrible. The local newspapers have folded. And people used to be able to get news about their state government because their local newspaper had a bureau in the state capitol. No, if the local newspaper exists, it probably can't afford to have the coverage of their state capital. So people don't know what's going on.
No, that is for sure. And even if they have a vague idea, they don't know what to do. What is this about? Is it about jobs? Is it about, personalities? I'm sure you, along your journey, were amazing. You must have kept everything, and it all came together.
Right. I have 5 file cabinets full of information, and I'm very proud now that it does appear in a book, and I hope people will now understand that it was difficult, but we won. We won so many victories, and we're never going back. We've had some defeats, but generally we have had victories, and I hope people will understand that we just have to keep working.
I know, and I wonder if I don't even know what we can call the they, if they really care, or they feel they could just push their way through and it doesn't matter.
Well, I think I hope people will understand, and we just have to keep talking to them and understand the needs of today's young women and girls. But I think a lot of it is, you mentioned the word personalities. I think a lot of it has to be done through individual stories of individual people. I want them to know not only about Betty Friedan, but Mary Eastwood and Anne Scott, names that are in the history books that should be in every history book, because they did change the world.
No, it was eye-opening. And, I was amazed. I was talking to a group of younger women. As you point out, some of them never even heard of Betty Friedan. Like, how could that be? But it is.
Right. I think Betty Friedan should be right up there with Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King.
She'd love to hear that.
As a liberator of half the population of the world, because after NOW was founded in 1966, we started this women's revolution, and it went worldwide very quickly because everybody said it was so long overdue. And so we have changed the world, and I hope people will understand and want to get in on making more changes.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ARTS. Just go to Indeed.com/ARTS right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
Americans love using their credit cards, the most secure and hassle-free way to pay. But D.C. politicians want to change that with the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. This bill lets corporate megastores pick how your credit card is processed, allowing them to use untested payment networks that jeopardize your data security and rewards. Corporate megastores will make more money, and you pay the price. Tell Congress to guard your card, because Americans lose when politicians choose. Learn more at guardyourcard.com.
when you look at working women who still push through and struggle today, I kept trying to remember, did I really go through all that? Or was it as complicated as I think? And it probably was, although I think it's worse for them today. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think they have the right to move ahead. They're in the pipeline, and there are working women who have become CEOs of our biggest corporations. So that's the good news. I think the bad news is they don't have child care. Oh. And until we have care for our children the way all other developed nations have, women can't really recognize their own potential. Child care is absolutely important. What's happened in some ways, there's been civil rights. So minority women haven't had to only take care of children and other people's children and do domestic work. They now can get into the pipeline and they can be presidents of colleges and corporations. So that's good. But it does mean that today's young women, it's very hard getting someone to take care of their children.
That is always the problem. And I remember when the school, my son's school, had a program for the little ones asking what's the best thing about having a mom who works or the worst thing about having a mom who works. And that day when they had that, I got a phone call from the principal of the school. He said, I just have to tell you, when we got to your son and asked what's the worst thing about having a working mother, and he thought about it, and he said, when she gets fired. And I got such a kick out of that. That was...
Well, my daughter was asked by Good Housekeeping in an article about children whose mothers were in prominent positions. And my daughter, who is 10 years old, said, I like having a mom who works. I don't get bored of her, and she doesn't get bored of me.
Oh, my gosh. Did she think that was funny when she heard that today?
Yes. And she's written 4 books of her own about coercive control and abuse, and I'm very proud she's followed in my footsteps. And my son is a therapist, and he's marched in abortion rights campaigns. He's been an escort at abortion clinics, and my granddaughters are following in the position. So we're doing what we can to move the revolution along.
And it's moving along, right? It's still following a strong path.
Right. It's moving. It's bumpy now, and I think it's going to be bumpy the next 4 years. But we have to know that it was hard in the past. Women couldn't get credit cards. Women couldn't get a mortgage. It was perfectly legal to say we don't hire women. We don't admit women to this restaurant or this labor union or this graduate school. That was legal. We changed that. That's not going to go back. But we have to make new changes.
No, and we have to continue to fight for a lot of issues that involve everything, including gender. The fight is not over.
Right, Joan. Absolutely. We have to continue the fight. And I hope my book will inspire some young people. And what's also happening is that women our age, my age, are buying the book because they want their granddaughters and their nieces to know what it was like.
Right.
The young people can't believe that the want ads used to say help wanted male, help wanted female. They said, no, I can't believe that. And that's the way it used to be. We had to fight for that for years.
Yeah, and you won in many ways.
Right, we won. Absolutely. That's not going to go back.
Do you find that when you go on a lecture or you do something, that the younger generation thinks that this fight is over? Do they take it for granted? And is finding help still the big issue?
Well, after I give a lecture, I get young people who say they are inspired, but they had not known. They just didn't know. And we have to get the word out to them. Communications is so important. I think that's one reason that people who are working for human rights have had a setback, I believe, in this last election. And we have to communicate the news and the information to people, and we have to do something about the lies that are being spread. People have to know the truth.
But how does one make that the message, and how do they hear the truth?
It's very difficult. We have to do it. We have to do it in books. We have to find ways to get their attention. And Joan, I'd love to talk to you about it sometime. What can be the new communications media that maybe will reach people? We've got to do something.
Well, after the holidays, we'll get together and see what we can come up with. And I appreciate your time. For me, it was a fascinating read, The Woman's Revolution by Muriel Fox, How We Changed Your Life. And there were so many changes. You've got to read it and understand what's going on, where we're going, and what it takes to get there. All the best to you. Happy holidays, Muriel, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Joan, and happy holidays to you.
I'm Joan Hamburg, and you're listening to WABC More Ahead.